This is probably the 7th time I've tried filming this. My mom is being the lovely camera woman this time because this just has not turned out. It's either been too hot or too shaded or too spotted or too dark, like whatever. My phone turned off because the temperature was too hot. So this is the lighting we're working with. Anyhow, today I just showed, so I'm still in my show clothes, but ideally you want to wear clothes you don't really care about. I'm just going to be very careful today. But this is my new Barnes Tack Room Valor monoflap saddle. It is fairly new. Well, it is new really. I've only had it for maybe a week and a half. But that being said, it's pretty clean. It could use a little bit of a condition. So today, and it's not that dirty. So when I need to condition leather, and you can tell if it's dry, there's certain things, if the coloring's changed, that usually means you need to oil it, or it needs conditioner. And the amount of dehydration, you could say, that the saddle has, it depends on if you're going to oil it or condition it. I personally try to oil as least as possible. I don't really like oil that much, but some new tack does need oil. Some tack that hasn't been cared for in a while does need oil. Just use it very sparingly. Oil can deteriorate the leather if used too much, and it could undo and ruin and rot the stitching. So just be very careful, and if you do oil, only use neat's foot oil. Do not use vegetable oil or coconut oil. Those types of oils, the vegetable, canola, coconut, whatever, those can cause mold on your saddle. There's something, I forget exactly what it is, but something about the type of the oil can cause mold. So if you are going to oil, use neat's foot. If you don't want your saddle darkened too much, Hydrophane makes a good oil for that. And if you do want your saddle darkened, you can use regular neat's foot, or Hydrophane makes a leather darkening oil. So today my saddle isn't that dirty, but it does need to be conditioned. I'm going to choose to use a cleaner like this. My favorite cleaner that I prefer to use is the Effax leather Combi, but I just ran out trying to film this 5 million other times, but I'm having to go to this. These are alcohol type based products. I don't know for sure if this one's alcohol based, but it acts a lot like an alcohol based product. So they do a really good job at cleaning. It has the consistency of water, but it is quite drying on your leather. So if you are going to use leather combi or this type of cleaner, always condition or oil afterwards. Okay. So this is the Belvoir Tack Cleaner. If I'm just doing a really quick tack cleaning, like I just rode and my saddle's not dirty, I will use something like this. This is the Moss Melts Away Leather Cleaner. This is more, it's more convenient than using a regular glycerin bar. I do have the Moss bar glycerin soap and the Belvoir glycerin soap. Glycerin is a really good all-in-one product. So if I just want a really quick clean, I will use this. But if I have a little bit more time, I prefer to use glycerin, like an actual real glycerin bar. And you would have seen that in that clip where I show you what type of products I use. Yeah, so if I'm doing really good clean, but I'm not conditioning, and this has a little bit of a conditioner in it, I will use this. It's pretty easy. I will show you this after I clean the saddle. But for this saddle, I'm going to use this and then follow up, since I don't need oil, with the Effax conditioner. It's the Balsam, leather balm, something like that. This stuff's really good. Passier makes a really good one as well. There's tons of really good conditioners, but it's really hard to find a good cleaner in my opinion. But oh, I was also going to say, if you do use straight glycerin, it helps protect your saddle from friction, wear and tear, and especially the seat right here. So when you do ride, never ride in jeans or really abrasive breeches with thick seams, because the seams will wear down the seat of your saddle and it'll erode, I guess, right here on the seat and where this piping is. My finger's wet, so I'm trying to like highlight the area. This is where it'll erode. If you put your dirty girth over your saddle and store it, that salt and sweat on the girth will eat away your leather and stitching. Then you'll end up having to replace your seat pretty quickly. So I only ever wear in really soft breeches or leggings. I never let anyone ride in my saddle with jeans.
Yeah, when we go on trail rides, she makes us wear yoga pants in her saddles. Yeah. Since we don't have breeches.
So, and I never store my girths on top of this. Yeah, so that's just a little PSA there. So I'm just going to spray some soap. I have a damp sponge. I have 2 buckets of super clean water. One of the biggest pet peeves I have is when people use dirty water or a dirty sponge to clean tack. That's like washing your clothes with dirty water. I don't understand why people do that. But the place I always start when cleaning Normally I go like this, but I'm trying to show you guys, so it's gonna be like this, all awkward. So normally when I clean...
What if you turn it around? Face me with it.
This is fine. So normally when I clean, I always start with the underside of the saddle. In my opinion, this is the most important part of the saddle to clean, so I always start here. This is where the horse's salt and sweat and dirt leaches through your saddle pad and gets on the underside of your panels and your sweat flaps. That's why they're called sweat flaps. So I always like to start here with the cleaner. So these alcohol-based cleaners really don't suds up. It just looks like water and you can smell the alcoholness of it. So I'm just going to clean the underside of my panels. Make sure you get really good into all these crevices. It's really important. And this saddle is actually pretty clean. I've only ridden in it once, but I'm showing you anyhow. So I actually need another spray, but I don't have another hand.
Wait, pause. Okay, so...
You spray it. It's a continuous spray. That's good.
Okay. This is not easy.
Well, I can do it by myself, but I have it awkward on the saddle stand so you guys could see. But you can tell when you need soap. And the way I clean tack is I think about compartmentalizing things. So I will do the whole underside if it's not that dirty with the sponge. And then I will dump my sponge back into the water, clean it out, make sure it's clean, get new soap. Then I will do one flap, and then I'll clean my sponge, do the seat, clean my
Halloween
sponge.
nails.
Yeah, and then do the other flap. So I kind of do it in sections. It's better to do it that way because you don't want soap sitting on one area of the saddle too long. So right now I'm just doing a quick clean. I rarely ever take my leathers off, to be honest. I just don't feel like I have a need for it. So I'm going to start on the flap, just rubbing. I'm not being too harsh. I have about medium pressure. I'm getting all the wear areas. Like I said, the saddle's new, so there's not a lot of built up gunk. But an alcohol-based product is really good for getting rid of the dirt buildup that you can see on some saddles. Make sure you get under the skirt, all up in here. You can flip the D-ring backwards to get under there. And then now I need another thing of soap. So like I said, I do use about 1 squirt per area of saddle. But if you notice your saddle's extra dirty and your sponge studs are getting dirty before you're done, feel free to clean your sponge and grab some more soap. There's nothing wrong with that. And another good thing to remember is when you're tack cleaning, use it as an opportunity to go over your tack and make sure everything's in good working order. You want to make sure your stitching isn't coming undone. You want to make sure that the bottom of your stirrup leathers or your stirrup sits isn't cracked, it's in good condition, it's not dry rotted. And another thing, I don't ever take my stirrups off to wash or to clean, but what you can do to get just as good of a clean, pull the leather down, clean where it was hidden before, remember what hole you're on, undo it, clean again, check for any creasing where the pressure was on the leather. You can clean the buckle if you want, go back up to your hole, check any stitching here, pull back up, voila. Alright, cleaning my sponge again. And this saddle is a monoflap, so there is less leather to clean. And I do have the longer billets. So what I'm going to do now is clean the billets. These are actually pretty clean. So I'm just really doing more of a once over on the saddle. But if it was dirty, I would usually take more time and sometimes clean out my sponge and go back a second time with the tack cleaner. These are really clean. Alright, now I'm going to clean it out again. Make sure I get all the water out as possible. You don't really want that much water on your saddle. Now I'm going to go to the seat of the saddle. So it's really important to clean right here on the seat. That's where you get a lot of friction and wear and tear from general riding. Make sure you get the skirt to the saddle. The cantle, make sure you get the panels on the outside. If you didn't, the panel, the outer panels here, make sure you clean these too. Not just the underside, but also this outside area. And now I'm going to move on to the top of the saddle. Alright, now I'm going with my Effax Leather Balsam. So my saddle, I just clean it, it's dry, it has a little bit of dust because we're outside and we're at a dusty barn. Oh well, but anyhow, just like how I started on the underside for cleaning, I'm going to do the same for the conditioner. This is how I normally clean, but yes. So I start with the flap. It's really important to condition the underside of your flap because again, that's where all the sweat is and it really dries out your leather. The sweat from the horse.
That
so it
smells
really,
good.
Yeah, so it's really important to keep the underside of your saddle conditioned. It's your first light in defense. And you want your tack to last longer. I try to clean my tack at least once a week. I try to clean it after every ride, but honestly that rarely happens. I just don't have time. But it does get cleaned at least once a week, and my tack generally gets conditioned at least once a month. It doesn't need to be conditioned as often because I do clean it on such a regular basis, but it is good to condition your tack, and I rarely oil my tack. Rarely needs it. And I live in a very dry climate in Southern California. And that's, oh my goodness, you're falling. Okay, you fell. Oh, this is awkward. So now I'm going to start on the flap of the saddle. Again, it's really important to condition the high friction areas. It just nourishes the leather. You don't want to over condition because that can cause the leather to soften and weaken over time. Just like oil breaks down the fibers, conditioning can do that, but it takes a lot longer for that to happen. So it's really important to listen to your tack and realize and learn what your tack looks like when it is dry and needs to be oiled. So for stirrup leathers, I try to oil them as little as possible. Depending on what type you have, they may not even take up oil. These are prestige leathers, so they take up oil, or I should say conditioner. I never oil my leathers, I only condition. I tend to not do it very often, but it has been a long time, so I am today. And then the girth straps, you don't want to condition or oil these very often. Like I said, you just have to learn to figure out when they are dry and need it. You don't want to over oil or over condition because it causes them to be too supple, and then your girth will stretch out your billet holes. And that's the same for a short billet saddle or a long billet saddle. So now I'm just going to finish doing a light coat of conditioner over the rest of the whole saddle, and then we'll be done. It soaked up the conditioner really quick, which if it was any other piece of tack, I would do a second coat on them. But the barn saddles tend to take a lot of oil anyhow, and it doesn't matter if they need oil or not. That's just the type of leather it is. So if I were to keep oiling or conditioning, it would get too saturated. But I can tell by feeling this and pressing on it and looking at the color that it's okay. So I would normally stop here. I would put my stirrups back up, put a saddle cover on, and call it a day. Some people like to go back over with glycerin, so just know that when you do use glycerin, that's usually like a one and done deal. That's kind of like an all-in-one, and you'll know that you have enough glycerin when you put a thumbprint on, like you put your thumb on the saddle. I can kind of show you with the conditioner. I'll put my thumb on and you can maybe see a print. I can see it, but I don't know if the camera will pick it up. But this isn't glycerin, but if you were to use glycerin, that's an indicator that you have enough. And what glycerin does is it acts like a sealant for your saddle. It protects your saddle from friction from your seat, your stirrup leathers. It protects from moisture, rain, and you need to make sure you have enough of that on. But conditioners have natural sealants in them. Some of them have types of waxes. This one, I don't know exactly what it has in it, but it has a natural sealant in them similar to glycerin, so I'm just going to leave it here. But some people do like to put glycerin on afterwards, but that's what I was saying. If you use glycerin, don't bother putting conditioner or oil on. The glycerin will seal your saddle, so anything you put on top of it will not soak in. The glycerin acts as a barrier. So the saddle's done. I'm going to put the stirrup back through, the leather back through, run my stirrups up. I always keep some type of, oh it's dirty, some type of stirrup cover on my stirrups to protect my saddle and leathers from my stirrups. These ones are by Jump Girl. I got them from Mary's Tack and Feed a really long time ago. But I highly recommend the stirrup covers by Green Horse Equestrian. I will show you them next on my other saddle. But you can get them in custom colors and they're really awesome. I have a discount code down below if you are curious. And all these products I'm using are also going to be listed down below. So now I always use a saddle cover. This one is a cover that came with the saddle by Belvoir Tack Cleaner. It's kind of small for my saddle. This saddle was a custom flap for me. It's a 16-inch flap. It's very, very extra forward for my very, very long legs. So it's a little bit tight on it, but it works. So now it gets hung back up on the saddle rack. Okay, this is how I store my saddles. This is how you should always store saddles. Make sure they're not in direct sunlight. I have sunroof. You don't want to see it. It's so like spider cobwebby. But anyhow, I do have natural skylights in here. I always keep covers on my saddles so they aren't getting damaged by the sun. Covers protect them from like barn dogs, barn cats, rats, squirrels, insects, whatever. You never know what's going to come across your saddle. Protect your saddle, protect your investment. Use saddle covers. My favorite are these waterproof type covers with fleece on the inside. This one is by Prestige, so I stole it off my other saddle because I like it better. But this is my other Belvoir Tack Cleaner saddle. Okay, so what's really important about storing saddles, which so many people don't understand it, but I'm about to explain it to you. So when you have a wool flocked saddle, I said that weird. When you have a wool flocked saddle, it's really important how you store your saddle. Most of the saddle racks people use actually sits on the panel of your saddle, and it makes creases over time into your panels. So the way I prefer to store it is on a single rod. So the gullet of the saddle sits on this rod, and you can put it down. You can like undo it.
It's about 2 inches, 2.5 inches wide maybe?
Yeah, about 2 inches. 3 fingers width. So when you set the saddle on it, you can see it only sits on the gullet of the saddle. And it's not putting any indents into my expensive wool flocked saddle, because having your saddle reflocked is quite expensive and investment, and you don't want that sitting on your horse's back. And that's another thing. When you clean your saddle, palpate the panels of your saddle to make sure that your flocking is still in good order. It's not balled up, it's not hard in one area and soft in another. That's an indicator you need your saddle reflocked. So now I'm going to show you how I do a quick cleaning.
While she's in the other shed, I just discovered this drawer. Now I know where the goodie money is. Quick run for rolled tacos or a pumpkin spice latte?
Okay, now this is my Belvoir Tack Cleaner dressage saddle. I do not own, like, all my saddles are not Belvoir, just these two that happen to be dirty. Amis are Arthrocotis and Voltaire Design. So anyhow, these are my super, super cute stirrup covers. These were custom colors by Green Horse Equestrian. I love them. They're Mears colors. They look adorable. So anyhow, this saddle is pretty clean. To be honest, it's already cleaned from filming this video so many times. But I'm going to show you how I do a quick everyday type of cleaning. And I'm going to use the Moss Melts Away. So this is more of a liquid glycerin soap. I just do 1 squirt. And this will suds a little bit, but not as much as glycerin. Using a bar of glycerin is more of an art. You have to figure out the moisture in your sponge to the glycerin soap like ratio, or else you get too many suds and then the suds are hard to clean. But anyhow, this is pretty easy to clean and does a really good job at doing some type of conditioning while also cleaning. So again, I start with the underside of the panels. It doesn't use too much water to clean, which is nice. It is a little bit more expensive than just a regular bar or a jar of glycerin, but you're also paying for the convenience of it being in a spray form, and it takes a lot less time. I do prefer glycerin as my main source of cleaning, but a lot of times I just don't have the time to clean and then go back over it to get rid of any sudsy residues left over. If you're at a pony club rating, they really like to see glycerin on your saddle, but it's also such a pain to clean. I would suggest using something more like this and making sure you have it fully cleaned before your inspection or whatever. I'm a B traditional in pony club, so I've had to go through the highest level of turnout inspections, and this is just what I found to really work. So this saddle, I'm going to show you how I do the, just a quick cleaning.